Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to make questions. Let's watch. Questions can be made in a variety of ways. For example, first, you can start by using inversion. What does that mean? I'll explain to you what it means. If you have a sentence like this one, they are Americans. If you'd like to form a question related to the sentence, you would say, are they Americans? What happened here? You inverted the locations of the subject and the verb. So inverted means to put them in opposite situations. So the subject usually in a normal sentence comes at the beginning and the verb comes after that. If you'd like to form a question, you put the verb first and then the subject after that. You say, are they Americans? So this is inversion. Here's another example. He should quit his job. Should he quit his job? So inversion happens in a number of situations. If you have verb to be, that's verb to be here. They are, that's verb to be. If you have a modal, that's a modal. Should is a modal. Can and could and should and may and might and must are called modals. So if you have verb to be or if you have a modal, you're supposed to use inversion. Should he quit his job? We invert the locations of the subject and the modal. She can't come right now. Can she come right now? You put the modal first and then the subject. And if you would like to use a question word like when, you're going to do the same thing. When can she come? So that's inversion. Now, in some cases, you don't use inversion, but use an auxiliary verb. Like if you have a present simple form or a past simple, like he works in a bank, that's the present simple. If I would like to form a question, I would say, does he work in a bank? So I use an auxiliary verb, does he work? And I also put the auxiliary verb at the beginning of the sentence rather than after the subject. And if you would like to use a question word, it will be like, where does he work? She left work early yesterday. Did she leave work early yesterday? When did she leave? That's an auxiliary verb for the present simple or the past simple. Now, in some cases, you might use a negative question, like this example. Isn't this a beautiful place? We often use negative questions when we're expecting the listener to agree with us. So, like I'm telling you my opinion about this place, I'm saying, isn't this a beautiful place? And I expect that you would say, yes, it is. It's a beautiful place. You understand what I'm saying? Also, we use negative questions if we're showing surprise. Didn't you attend the party? Like, I'm surprised that you didn't attend the party. That's why I used a negative question like that. Using prepositions. Prepositions are words like in, on, at, under, about, and so on. If a verb is followed by a preposition in the question, put the preposition at the end of the question, not at the beginning. For example, what are you talking about? Not about what you're talking, that's wrong. So we put the preposition at the end. When the question word is the subject. In some situations, the question word can be the subject of the question. If this is the case, don't use an auxiliary verb. What does that mean? I'll explain to you. Look at this example. Who lives in this house? The question word here in this situation is the subject. So we don't use an auxiliary verb. We don't say, who does live in this house? Here's another example. Who wrote this? The question word who is the subject. So we don't use an auxiliary verb. We don't say, who did write this? That's wrong. So you may ask me, how do I know that the question word is the subject? And how do I know that the question word is not the subject? Basically, if there is no other subject in the question, so the question word is the subject. Look at this example. Who do you live with? There is another subject here, which is you. So in this case, the subject is you and it's not the question word. So if I want to make a question, it's going to be, who do you live with? We're going to use an auxiliary verb. But in that case, there's no other subject. The house is not the subject here in this situation. So the question word is the subject and we don't use an auxiliary verb. Here we have an auxiliary verb, which is do. In that situation, there is no auxiliary verb. Okay. Now, this part is a little bit different. Indirect questions. Sometimes we use the question words as relative pronouns to connect two sentences. So they are not used to ask, but they are used to connect two parts together. If this is the case, we don't use the question form after the relative pronoun. What does that mean? I'll explain to you. Look at the situation. Where does he live? Now, this is a normal question. And the question word is used to ask a question. So we use the form of the question. We say, where does he live? We use the auxiliary verb. But look at that. I don't know where he lives. That's not a question. And the question word here is not used to ask. It's used to connect two parts. It's a relative pronoun. So we do not use the form of the question after where. We don't say, I don't know where does he live. We don't do that. Here's another example. Can you tell me where he lives? Now, this is a question, but the question is this part. Can you tell me? Not that part. So this part takes the form of the question, but this part takes the form of a normal sentence. So we don't say, can you tell me where does he live? That would be wrong. Here's another example. Where is my phone? We have inversion here. We started with the verb first because this is a normal question. And the question word here is used to ask. But look at that. I can't remember where my phone is. That's not even a question. The question word is not used to ask. It's used to connect two parts of the sentence together. So we don't use the form of the question here. We don't say, I can't remember where is my phone, like that. No, we say, I can't remember where my phone is. It becomes a normal sentence. Here's another example. Do you know where my phone is? Now, this is a question, but this part is the question. Do you know? Not that part. So this part takes the form of the question, but that part does not take the form of the question. We don't say, do you know where is my phone? No, we say, do you know where my phone is? It's a normal sentence now. This part is a normal sentence. Okay, let's practice. All you have to do is to rearrange these words to make questions. That's all you have to do. Take your time, please. Grab a pen and a piece of paper and write down the correct questions here. You have to rearrange them. And then I'm going to show you the correct answers. Make sure that you start with the word that has a capital letter at the beginning. So here we have should, capital letter, H here, C here, W here, and W there. Take your time, please. Okay, time for me to show you the answers. Should I tell her how I feel? That's number one. Number two, how long have you known your best friend? Number three, could you tell me when the next train leaves? Number four, who does the housework in your family? Number five, what are you thinking about? Do the same thing in the questions from 6 to 10. All you have to do is to rearrange them to make questions and also start with the capital letters, with the words that have the capital letters. Here and there and how and do. Take your time, pause the video. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. What don't you like doing on the weekend? That's a question. What kind of music does Jane like listening to? Do you know what time the movie ends? How many students came to class yesterday? Do you remember where the restaurant is? Okay. This is a different exercise. All you have to do is to complete the questions with the words in the parentheses. Like, for example, how often blank yoga? We're supposed to use these words, you usually. But you will need to decide if you're going to use an auxiliary verb or not, and if you need to make any changes in these words or not. Take your time, complete the questions from 1 to 5, and then I'm going to show you the answers. Please remember to pause the video in order to have your full time. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. How often do you usually do yoga? We're supposed to use an auxiliary verb here. Why? Because this is a normal question. How often do you usually do? That's a normal question. So we have to use an auxiliary verb here in the situation. Because that's a normal question, actually. Number two, who wrote The Great Gatsby? We're not going to say who did write. That would be wrong. Why? Because who is the subject here in the situation. So you say who wrote. Number three, could you tell me how much this book costs? That's an indirect question. We're not going to use the question form here because the question is this part. Could you tell me? Not that part. So this part is going to take the form of a sentence, not the form of a question. So we're not going to say how much does this book cost. That would be wrong. Number 4, I can't remember where I parked my car this morning. That's a normal sentence even. That's not even a question. So we're not going to say, I can't remember where did I park. That would be wrong. Where I parked because it's a sentence. Number 5, did you enjoy your trip to Paris last weekend? That's a normal question. We're going to use an auxiliary verb. Did you enjoy? That's it. Do the same thing in the questions from 6 to 10. Complete using these words and make sure that you change anything that needs to be changed. Okay, now I'm going to show you the answers. What kind of work does your sister do? That's a normal question, so we have to use an auxiliary verb. It's in the present simple. We have to use an auxiliary verb. Number 7, who ate the last cookie? The question word is the subject, so we are not going to use an auxiliary verb. We're not going to say who did eat. That would be wrong. Number 8, do you know what time the swimming pool opens? That's not a direct question. The question is this part. Do you know? So that part is going to take the form of a sentence. The swimming pool opens. Number 9, didn't your sister like the present you gave her? That's a question in the past. We're going to use an auxiliary verb here in that situation. And it's a negative question, so we start with the negative part. Number 10, do you have to play your music so loud? That's a normal question. We use an auxiliary verb without any problems. Okay? Now practice, please. Make questions. All you have to do is to make normal questions. That's a very simple exercise. He works in a factory. So make a question using where. And here using when and who and where and who. I'll give you some time. Okay, now let's take a look at the answers. He works in a factory. Where? Where does he work? We use an auxiliary verb. Does. She traveled to America in 2020. When? When did she travel to America? We use an auxiliary verb, did, because that's the past. And remember to use the infinitive after the auxiliary verbs. They took all my money. Who? Who took all your money? We're not going to use an auxiliary verb here because who is the subject of the question? The book is in the desk. Where? Where is the book? Inversion. Not where the book is, where is the book? Number 5, he should visit his parents. Who? Who should he visit? Or maybe you want to form the question, you can say, who should visit his parents, for example, maybe something like that. We're going to do the same part. We're going to do the same thing here in this part. You're supposed to make questions, but pay attention to questions 9 and 10. They are yes or no questions. Yes or no questions are questions which are answered with yes or no. So you're not going to use any question words. You're not going to use how much or how many or when or where or why. Just a simple question that can be answered by yes or no. Okay. Take your time, try to write the questions here, and I'm going to show you the answers in a few seconds. Okay, here are the answers. I have 2 brothers, so it's going to be how many brothers do you have? I paid 200 pounds. How much money did you pay? Or just how much did you pay if you don't want to use the word money? He's traveling tomorrow. When is he traveling? They are married, so a yes or no question will be, are they married? So the answer will be yes, they are, or no, they're not. And pay attention to the fact that we're using inversion here. We put the verb first and then the subject after that. She speaks French. Yes or no question would be, does she speak French? We're going to use an auxiliary verb here because that's the present simple. Does she speak French? Okay, I hope today's lesson was useful. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Assalamu alaikum.